All right, today we'll be starting with an IELTS essay. This time we'll be starting with one of the common questions of IELTS. As I mentioned before, this IELTS question consists of 28%. This type of question is agree or disagree. So first, let's look at the question and see how it is different from the other question. Um, The word that starts first is what distinguishes young people from their parents' or grandparents' generation is a lack of physical exercise. Today's generation are spending far too long playing computer games, chatting aimlessly on social networking sites, or simply watching TV and too little time being active. Like I mentioned in the other time, um, the way how we write an introduction is basically, and this is same thing for all teachers. All teachers say the same thing. One of the thing that they do is they summarize the first sentence. In case of me, I would do like this. In case of me, if I agree, then I would write moreover. Moreover, right? And if I disagree, I would write however. And then write my supporting statement. All right, so today I'll be teaching you how this essay can be written more effectively. All right, now the way how I paraphrase the first sentence, the way how I summarize the first sentence is, the first sentence says, what distinguishes young people from their parents' or grandparents' generation is a lack of physical exercise. And then I would summarize it like this. So if you compare this one, this sentence, and this sentence, the way how I paraphrased it is the main difference between the young adults, which is comparable to young people, and the time where the older generations lived is being less involved in sports or other activity that includes less movement. So rather than putting lack of physical exercise, right, I put less involved in sports or other activity that includes less movement. That's what I put down. And then, since I do not agree with this, I said, however, due to the influence of the media, many young adults are thriving to have a heavenly body and a good appearance. And this is encouraging many of them to exercise. So I say, because of the media, what I'm trying to say, the younger generation nowadays, they exercise more compared to the older generation. That's what I am saying. So this is how the introduction is divided. The main difference between the young adults and the time where the other generations lived is being less involved in sports or other activity that includes less movement. However, due to the influence of the media, many young adults are thriving to have a heavenly body and a good appearance. And this is encouraging many of them to exercise. So this is how I finish my introduction. Okay, and before we move to the body, right? Even expert writers, it is necessary to have a brainstorming. So what I'm going to do first, right, since it is agree or disagree, I am going to state my opinion about the older generation. So I'm going to make one body for the older generation and another body of the paragraph for the new generation. So body one, what I would put down is the older generation, right? Older generation only consists of the labor, which consisted, yeah, that doesn't kind of make sense. All right, much hard work. For example, what I put down is we have primary and secondary industries, and these industries actually consisted a lot of movement. Okay, so as you know the definition, primary utilizes natural resources of the environment, and secondary industry process of making natural resources into product. Point. Now, these were the main jobs, so people had no other choice but to be active. And the conclusion will be when I say conclusion, I'm talking about the conclusion of this body. They are active, but not voluntarily. And number one, right? Many people, the first sentence that I am going to put down is this. Now, I've been explaining to my students how this can be done. The best way to write the first sentence is you have to look at your last one, this sentence right here. And then, for example, right, all you have to do is add because. And then after you write that sentence after because, then that is the first sentence that's going to come out on the first paragraph. All right. I clearly explained to you what I meant. And if you're kind of confused, try to listen to it over and over again. Then you're able to understand. All right. Then it would come up to this sentence. So the first sentence, it says, many people during our parents' generations had no other choice but to be physically active due to the demanding labor, which required an immense movement. Now, the reason why I highlighted this had no other choice but because it is more like a linking clauses. And as you know in IELTS, right, the more different the sentences are, the higher score you get. So we have this on connecting conjunctions such as due to and also which. The second sentence I put it during the years of the Vietnam War and the Gulf War. Now the reason why I put Vietnam War and Gulf War is I've put too much word that consists of generations, parents' generation, or like previous generation. So I actually put the background of Vietnam War and the Gulf War. And the most available employments were in the primary and the secondary sector of industry, such as works in factory, minefield, fisheries, and agriculture. Now, when you look at the employment, right, I kind of highlighted it. One of the reasons is because there are some different words, the way how you can use this words. So we have employment, job, career, and work. Now, the third sentence. Now, this is also a good word, although, right? And they also look at this word carefully also for IELTS writing. So it says, although the job allows the workers to move back and forth, it is hard to say that it is an exercise. Exercise is a physical movement that is done spontaneously. So we have another vocabulary word, not involuntarily. Consequently, starting with this word is also effective. This is called subordinate clause. The physical exercise mentioned in the question is mostly related to the jobs that people did during that time. All right, so in overall, right, the reason why people think that the previous generations, like our father or grandfather generation, did a lot of exercise is because of the labor that they did, which consisted a lot of movement. Body 2. The note that I put here is like these. It is true that they spend much time on mobiles. There are many ads that promotes heavenly body. Being fat was a symbol of affluence, now symbol of poverty. I just wrote this just in case, even though if it is not related. Now, when you are writing an essay, right? And when you are giving an idea, making an idea, try to make a lot of idea. Even if you are not going to use that for the essay, it is better to use those, just choose some of the ideas that is needed. So what I would recommend you is to write down all the ideas if you can. All right, now the first sentence, what I put is, since the emerge of smartphones, many individuals are exposed to social network services SNS, like Twitter or Facebook, as well as dramas and movies. Now, when you note here, right, I wrote individuals instead of people. Like I said before, right, if you repeat the word too often, then that is a minus for the essay. And also what I put here is some social network services. Some people would ask me, why do you have to write that whole word? But according to the essay rule, right, first, and you'll see this everywhere, even when you read a newspaper. First, they write down the whole word, and then they put SNS in parentheses. And then from then on, right, when you're trying to write social network services, you don't have to put this whole word. You can just put SNS from then on. All right. All right, and then the second sentence, I started with moreover so that it can give a sense of connectivity. These dramas and movies do not just expose so-called normal people. In fact, they would show actors or actress with attractive and glamorous bodies. For instance, when we watch superhero movies, all the superheroes are well fit with charismatic looks. Generations these days will look up to these characters and want to live like them, want to be like them. Most of the time, they know what it takes to have such physics, so they exercise intensively to have such body. All right, now try to mark these words, which is a really good words to use. And this essay is something that I made by myself. So, I really don't care if you use it somewhere or if you may use it for your own purpose or anything. All right, because my main job is to teach the students. All right, so if the students can actually learn something off of this essay, then you guys can take it and use it anywhere. All right, that is up to you. The sentence number 7. As a result, speaking of exercise, the individuals in nowadays generation are more into it than the ones in the past. And then the conclusion, I would start with like in conclusion, and then start the word with although. So I started the word with wrapping up. It kind of sounds casual, but I don't want to use something that is too much common, like in conclusion, or to end up, or sum up. I just want to be like casual, just want to be different, so I use this word wrapping up. Although the people in the modern society lacks physical activity than our older generation on the surface, the entertainment motivates most of us to exercise. Now here us is referring to people nowadays, new generation, because we are the new generation, right? And then this is how I would write the first sentence. And like I told you, right, using this word although is really a good word to use for your score to improve for IELTS writing. Now, and then the second sentence I started with, frankly speaking, this is also a word that they look after. The older generation may have moved immensely, but not voluntarily. And involuntary continuous movement cannot be called an exercise. And this is how I ended the sentence. Now let's look at everything here. Now your whole essay, right, has to look like this. So your essay on the surface should look like this. So what they do, right? If it looks like this, all right, let's say the grammar is somewhat correct, the questions are not that accurate. Usually they give students 5.0 to 5.5. Right, so that is regardless of the story, what they're talking about, or just like the grammar, because writing has its criteria. I will introduce later what that criteria is. But if you can just, let's say my goal, right? My goal is about maybe 5.5, right? Then just writing it like this is enough, right? Like you don't have to write like fancy words like I did, or like a good sentence like I did, right? But 5.5, you can just like memorize some sentences and put them together in order to get 5.5. All right. So that's one of the advice that I can give you. All right. Okay. So today we talked about agree or disagree type of question. And next time, I would like to talk about advantage and disadvantage question. And some of you, if you want to learn Korean, you can look at my previous videos because I have the Korean version for this. So if you have some interest in Korean, you can also listen to this IELTS essay lecture in Korean as well. All right, thank you. See you next time.